Are you the right tool for the job, or are you just the tool that's in the job? Last week, there was a headline about a woman in Australia in a nursing home who has dementia, and she was tasered by a police officer. She's now in critical condition. This headline created a lot of discussion, a lot of outrage about the increasing militarization of the police, approaching everything as a combat situation with a warrior mentality. But I asked the question, why on earth was a police officer there at the nursing home in the first place? Well, I know the answer to that, unfortunately. And I can remember many times where I've had to bring the police into situations where they really weren't needed. The sometimes absurd regulation in nursing homes requires that the police be called for anything that could be a crime. So it doesn't matter if the acts alleged aren't physically possible. It doesn't matter if the danger is non-existent. It doesn't even matter if bringing in an officer is only going to make the situation worse. Nursing homes have to call the police, or they have heavy fines, sanctions, and possible jail time for an administrator like me. Too pretty to go to jail. So look, to illustrate, I once had a very confused patient who claimed that men were climbing out of her radio and tying her to the ceiling with rubber sheets. So when I brought the police officer, as required by the state of Illinois, he panicked, ordered everyone to stay exactly where they were, and he called in a crisis team for a medical evaluation. Because, in his words, she obviously needed medical attention with all those tubes in her. When they arrived, they explained that this was the place that they would bring her to for that medical attention, and would they like him to load her in the ambulance, drive her around the parking lot, and then bring her back to her room so we could keep caring for her. I had one officer who responded to a call about a confused elder who was throwing furniture and he'd actually injured one of our staff members. That officer drew his weapon and began yelling at this poor man who didn't understand anything the guy was saying. I believe that that patient's life was saved by a director of nursing who stood between the patient and the policeman with his gun out and told him to stop being such a little coward and put his gun away. I had a dementia patient who screamed rape every single time she saw an African American man. And we kept all men out of the hallway that she lived in at all times. But she saw someone through the window who was a visitor, and that triggered a call to the police because she made a rape allegation. The responding officer slammed one of my staff members against the wall, a young African American male nurse, and started to put handcuffs on him before I very forcefully explained to him that he needed to stand down or I would make sure that he was charged with assault. I don't know how many times I've had to talk down a young police officer who was puffing out his chest and attempting to assert control and authority over a situation where he was clearly the least qualified person in the room to do that. And that really is the crux of the problem. Everybody here, including those police officers, were just acting the part that they were required to by the regulations. Complex situations can't be solved with simple responses. Now, is force sometimes needed? As someone who ran a prison nursing home and someone who's been injured more than once or twice by confused or violent patients, I can say yes. But 99 times out of 100, de-escalation, redirection, and restraint is going to win the day for you. Now, I solved that police problem by visiting with the local police chief. I invited him and any officers who were interested to come and visit and meet our staff and our patients before they were called out on some complaint in the future. We identified two older and wiser officers who were going to be the ones designated to respond to all of our calls, because it's a routine thing that happens when you have a lot of confused people reliving past traumas. We had them come and attend trainings on dementia care. We trained them on de-escalation techniques and on behavior management. I actually grew to really adore one of the officers who always asked the obvious and absurd questions. I remember him saying, he threw you out the window, you say, and how did you get back to your room on the 5th floor? You climbed the drain pipe. Oh, can you stand up for me on your own? No? Okay. Or one young chap, he said, he punched you through the bed and knocked your teeth out? Oh, which teeth? I don't see any missing. You put them back in with glue, you say. He just had such a great way of walking them through the reality of sometimes the situation. Now, while the incidents with the police are the ones that draw the most headlines, they're not the only ones who apply their go-to blunt force response to every situation. We all do that. It's just the response that we know. Are we solving behavioral issues with a psychotropic sedative? Are we solving non-payment issues with discharges and legal action? Are we solving financial issues in our company with layoffs? Are we solving employee issues with immediate disciplinary action? We go to our go-to easy blunt force response because it's the one that we know, just like any police officer who's untrained to be in that situation. In the end, we're trying to solve complex human issues, and human problems have aspects that are social, emotional, psychological, historical, medical, financial, pharmacological, and situational. And we can't, but we do, try to solve these with a single tool, the one we know best. And we can all often be a tool that's totally untrained and unsuited for the job at hand. Becoming the right tool means learning. It means understanding all of the components that went into the root cause of the problem. It means getting out of the comfort zone of what you know and being like those really great officers that came and met our patients and team and learned about dementia. They were fantastic. It means stepping aside sometimes and recognizing you may not be the expert here or the best person to be in charge of that situation. Above all, it means recognizing that there is a human being at the center of the issue. They might be scared or hurt or need help, not medicated, sued, fired, or tasered.